Join us as we delve into the fascinating and often misunderstood story of Sodom and Gomorrah, two ancient cities that were destroyed by God in a blaze of fire and brimstone. But what really led to their downfall? Was it just one sin, or a combination of many that sealed their fate? In this video, we'll explore the 5 unforgivable sins of Sodom and Gomorrah and examine the biblical account of their destruction. From pride and arrogance to greed and sexual immorality, we'll uncover the truth behind one of the most infamous stories in the Bible. So, what really happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? Let's find out. Sodom and Gomorrah are among the most infamous cities in the Bible, rivaling the likes of Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth, Babylon, and Egypt. The story of their demise, set during the time of Abraham and his nephew Lot, is narrated in the book of Genesis. The level of sin and wickedness that consumed Sodom and Gomorrah was beyond redemption. God's judgment was swift and complete, leaving no trees, buildings, monuments, or even people standing. Few cities have ever faced such absolute devastation directly from God's hand. But what were the sins that warranted such harsh punishment? What had the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah done that led to their total obliteration? Let's explore these unforgivable sins. And yes, we will answer the burning question: is homosexuality truly the main reason behind God's destruction of these cities? You might be surprised by the answer. Before we continue, please take a moment to support this project by liking and sharing this video. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I'm deeply grateful for your support. Let's aim for 1 million subscribers. God bless you, and thank you for being here. Now let's dive in. To begin, let's set the stage with the story of Pompeii, a city destroyed long after Sodom and Gomorrah. In 79 AD, Pompeii, a bustling Roman city, was buried under ash and lava when Mount Vesuvius erupted. The peaceful city was vaporized within hours, its people frozen in time, its secrets hidden for centuries beneath layers of debris. While Pompeii's destruction was the result of natural forces, Sodom and Gomorrah faced divine judgment. We know why Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed: their sins and refusal to heed God's warnings. Sin number 1, wickedness. Wickedness is the most general yet encompassing term for moral evil, and it covered a range of malicious behaviors in Sodom and Gomorrah. It's the opposite of righteousness, a deliberate turning away from God's commands toward deceit, cruelty, violence, and more. In Genesis 18 verses 20 to 21, we read, "Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me. And if not, I will know." This passage shows how the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah cried out for God's intervention. People suffered as a result of their wickedness, and their cries reached the heavens. Even Abraham tried to negotiate with God, asking if he would spare the cities for the sake of the righteous living there. In Genesis 18 verse 23, Abraham asked, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" God agreed that if even 10 righteous people could be found, he would not destroy the cities. Sadly, that small number could not be met, sealing Sodom and Gomorrah's fate. Wickedness in Sodom and Gomorrah included every form of evil: deceit, violence, dishonesty, cruelty, and murder. It was a cesspool of pervasive corruption, a place too far gone to be redeemed. This wickedness drew the full extent of God's wrath, leaving behind nothing but ash. Sin number 2, idolatry and idol worship. Though not explicitly stated in Genesis, it's reasonable to infer that idolatry and the worship of false gods were rampant in Sodom and Gomorrah. When people commit wicked acts without any remorse, it reflects their disconnect from the true worship of God. It's impossible to live in deceit, cruelty, violence, and malice while genuinely worshiping God in truth and spirit. Such individuals were likely worshiping false gods, whether in the form of idols, power, wealth, prestige, or fame. As the Apostle Paul explained in Romans 1 verse 25, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator. This highlights the essence of idolatry: the act of venerating things created by human hands or minds instead of honoring the Creator who made everything. Jeremiah also alluded to this when comparing the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah to Jerusalem's errant prophets, saying, "But in the prophets of Jerusalem I have seen a horrible thing. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They strengthen the hands of evildoers so that no one turns from his evil. All of them have become like Sodom to me, and its inhabitants like Gomorrah." Jeremiah 23 verse 14. This indicates that the spiritual decay present in Sodom and Gomorrah also plagued Jerusalem, fueled by idolatry and turning away from God. Sin number 3, homosexuality. Many claim that the primary reason God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah was the prevalence of homosexuality within the cities. According to the Bible, homosexuality is regarded as immoral, but it doesn't fit the strictest definition of wickedness, which involves inflicting harm on others. Homosexual acts, while sinful in a spiritual sense, don't inherently result in physical harm to individuals. Spiritually, of course, the consequences may be different. However, it's important to recognize that homosexuality alone did not seal the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah. Their destruction was the result of a combination of egregious sins, including widespread violence, cruelty, and idolatry. Sodom and Gomorrah have re-emerged in modern discussions largely due to the growing acceptance of homosexuality, with governments now legalizing same-sex marriages, and even institutions like the Catholic Church allowing blessings for homosexual couples. The term sodomized originated from the events in Sodom, describing male homosexual acts and often extending to refer to acts of sexual perversion. However, the main issue was not solely homosexuality, but rather sexual violence. The inhabitants of Sodom twisted God's intended purpose for sexual relations, engaging in what the Bible describes as vile and shameful passions. Apostle Paul writes in Romans 1 verses 26 to 27, "Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men, and received in themselves the due penalty for their error." Paul is explicitly talking about homosexual acts here, and though some argue it's merely a cultural distaste of his era, they are mistaken. The Bible clearly condemns homosexuality as a sin. Leviticus 18 verse 22 states, "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination." Leviticus 20 verse 13 goes even further. "If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination." Jude 1 verse 7 reflects the punishment for this. Just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desire, they serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire. If you are a Christian struggling with homosexual feelings, seek solace in the Holy Spirit. Jesus can guide you toward redemption. Sin number 4, idleness. While it might seem surprising, idleness was also a significant sin in Sodom and Gomorrah. An idle mind is the devil's workshop, holds true. When people become complacent and purposeless, sin quickly follows. The citizens of these cities lived in comfort and excess, but with that ease came pride and a turn towards decadence and entitlement. Without meaningful goals or work, they indulged in their every desire, becoming morally corrupted. Ezekiel 16 verses 49 to 50 captures this. "Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excessive food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. They were haughty and did an abomination before me. So I removed them when I saw it." Idleness leads to a lack of purpose, which in turn leads to sin. This warning applies today as much as it did then. We are called to work in the vineyard of Christ. If we are not actively serving his purpose, we risk missing the mark, and missing the mark is sin. Sin number 5, pride in sin. The most dangerous sin of all is pride in sin. Not only did the people of Sodom and Gomorrah engage in sinful behaviors, but they reveled in them. They boasted about their sinfulness, flaunting it for all to see, and were entirely deaf to the whispers of the Holy Spirit. Isaiah 3 verses 8 to 9 highlights this pride. "For the look on their faces bears witness against them. They proclaim their sin like Sodom. They do not hide it. Woe to them, for they have brought evil on themselves. This arrogance is perhaps best illustrated in the story of Lot and the angels. When the angels visited Lot, the men of Sodom, known for their depravity, surrounded his house and demanded to have sexual relations with the guests. Even when Lot offered his daughters in their place, the men persisted in their desire for the male visitors, showing how far they had sunk into sin. They were so consumed by lust that they threatened to break down Lot's door. The angels intervened, striking the mob with blindness to prevent the atrocity. Soon after, they warned Lot of the coming destruction and led him and his family to safety. Lot's compromise, offering his daughters, shows the dangerous position he found himself in, living among the unrighteous and bending under the pressure of their sinful ways. In the end, Sodom and Gomorrah were utterly destroyed by God's wrath. Brimstone and fire rained down, completely wiping out the cities. Their fate serves as a stark reminder that pride in sin will lead to destruction, both then and now. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We appreciate your comments. God bless you all.